All young girls need strong female role models in their lives. If one is looking at literature for a strong female role model, Elizabeth Bennet would make the list every single time. She's outspoken, unconventional, intelligent, poised, recognizes her own faults, and she holds herself accountable. But when Mr. Darcy first proposes, Elizabeth is incensed that he thinks she would find him a suitable marriage partner. A Cutting from Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Mr. Darcy began,
"In vain I have struggled. You must allow me to tell you how ardently I admire and love you."
Elizabeth's astonishment was beyond expression. This he considered sufficient encouragement? He spoke of her inferiority, of its being a degradation. He concluded with the strength of attachment, in spite of his endeavors to conquer, and his hope that it would now be rewarded by her acceptance. When he ceased, the color rose in her cheeks. "If I could feel gratitude, I would now thank you, but I cannot." Mr. Darcy's complexion became pale with anger. He was struggling for an appearance of composure.
"And this is not the reply of which I have the honor of expecting? I might, perhaps, wish to be informed why I am thus rejected."
"Do you think that any consideration would tempt me to accept the man who has been the means of ruining, perhaps forever, the happiness of my most beloved sister?"
"I have no wish in denying that I did everything in my power to separate my friend from your sister."
"But it is not merely this affair in which my dislike is founded. My opinion of you was decided many months ago from Mr. Wickham. You have reduced him to his current state of poverty, and you have withheld the advantages you must know have been designed for him."
"And this is your opinion of me? This is the estimation of which you hold of me?"
"You are mistaken, Mr. Darcy. If you suppose that you could have made the offer of your hand in any way possible that would have tempted me to accept it. From the very beginning, I have felt you were the last man in the world whom I could ever be prevailed on to marry." Fancy Nancy from children's literature has been impacting young girls' lives for nearly 20 years. Nancy encourages her readers when she uses her fancy vocabulary and her imagination on her quest for all things fancy. Surprisingly, not everything in Nancy's life is perfect, and the reader gets to see Nancy overcome these struggles with finesse and the help of her parents. Fancy Nancy by Jane O'Connor. "Hi, my name is Nancy, and I love being fancy." Nancy liked to write her name with a pen that had a plume. "That's a fancy way of saying feather, and I can't wait to learn French because everything in French sounds so fancy. Oh, comme c'est joli." The problem was, nobody in Nancy's family was fancy at all. There was a lot that Nancy's family just didn't understand. "Sandwiches definitely taste better when you stick in the frilly toothpicks. A princess is supposed to have her tiara on at all times. But what's a fancy girl supposed to do?" Then Nancy thinks, "I have a stupendous idea. That's a fancy word for great. Maybe I can teach my family how to be fancy." She makes an ad. It reads, "Learn to be fancy, lessons from Nancy." "Well, I was hard at work on my displays for my lessons. I heard it knock at my door." All of Nancy's family had seen the ad and they wanted to get started right away. As Nancy's mom twirled in front of the mirror, she said, "Why don't we go somewhere fancy tonight?" Nancy's dad has a great suggestion.
"How about dinner at the King's Crown?"
"La la! fancier already.
May I escort you, lovely ladies? The limousine is waiting.
When they arrive at the King's Crown, everyone looks up to watch the family walk in. I am so proud of my whole family. They eat with their pinkies up and call each other darling. For dessert, let's have parfaits, Nancy's mom says. That's French for ice cream sundaes. Amazing, my mother knows French. When the parfaits are ready, Nancy says, Mercy. Nancy carries the tray like a fancy waiter. Oops, I trip and I slip. The tray does a double flip, and Nancy just doesn't feel so fancy anymore. After Nancy is home and all cleaned up, she tells her parents, Thanks for being so fancy tonight. Both parents tell Nancy they love her, and all she has to say back is, And I love you, because there isn't a better or fancier way of saying that. As a young poet, Emily Dickinson writes how a conventional writer will communicate through prose, but she decides to be dangerous and communicates through poetry. This was an earth-shattering thought for women in late 1850s America, where women were meant to be quiet and fulfill traditional roles. Dickinson opens up so many different possibilities for young women feeling shackled by society. They Shut Me Up in Prose by Emily Dickinson. They shut me up in prose. As when a little girl, they put me in the closet because they liked me. Still, could themselves have peeped and seen my brain go round. They might as wise have lodged a bird, for treason, in the pound. Himself has but to will, and easy as a star, look down upon captivity and laugh. No more have I. In my final selection, Greek mythology offers up a strong female role model named Antigone. Antigone's sister, Ismene, chooses to do what is expected of her and follow her father, the king's orders. But Antigone chooses to be brave and bury her brother honorably in defiance of the king. A scene from Antigone by Sophocles. Ismene, and does not Creon tweet our brothers twain? One with the rites of burial, and one with shame? They say he has proclaimed to all citizens that none should give his body burial, but leave it unsepulchred. Wilt thou with me share risk and toil? And dost thou mean to give him sepulchre when all have been forbidden, Antigone? He is still my brother, yes, and thine. I desert him not. O daring one, when Creon bids thee not. What right has he to keep me from mine own? Do it thou wilt, I go to bury him. But thou canst dishonor what the gods approve. I do them no dishonor, but I find myself far too weak to war against the state. Make what excuse thou wilt. I go to rear a grave above the brother whom I love. Disclose this deed to none. Keep it hidden. Speak out, I bid thee. Silent that will be hateful to me. I will cease to strive when my strength shall fail me.